On a cool August morning in 2009, I drove up a sloping, narrow driveway in Glen Ellen, California, on my way to visit the past. Last house. This was where my great-aunt, the writer M.F.K. Fisher, lived the last 20-plus years of her life, and where she died in 1992. I had not been back since then. None of us had. In the car with me was my grandmother, Nora, M.F.'s sister, along with my father, my wife, and my 5-year-old daughter. The house was set back a good distance from the country road, facing a dry, rustling meadow. I drove slowly, past a row of large walnut trees covered in extravagant drapings of moss. They were like something out of a dream, alien but beautiful. The house was a fixture of my childhood, small and white, with a peaked tile roof, thick stucco walls, and arched openings over the veranda and entryway. M.F. referred to it, with the barest note of irony, as her palazzo. Inside were 2 grandly proportioned high-ceilinged rooms and the largest bathroom I'd ever seen, with a bathtub in the middle of it and a shower from which jets of water shot out in all directions. The bathroom walls were painted a dark Pompeian red. I called my great-aunt Dote, which was her childhood nickname. We in the family all called her that, though she was M.F. or Mary Frances to friends. My grandmother was Noni or Known. Dote and Noni, they called each other. M.F. was the older sister by 9 years. In the 1970s, my parents' younger brother and I used to come for lunch on our way to visit my grandmother for the weekend. Nora lived in Jenner, a bit farther north on the Sonoma County coast. I can still remember the pulsing, dry heat of midday, midsummer Glen Ellen, the pleasure of escaping the stifling back seat of the family car, a red VW Bug or white Toyota Corona, depending on the year, and entering the cool, dark interior of M.F.'s house. It always smelled faintly of cooking, and even more faintly of vermouth and of books. The books were everywhere, and M.F. would have been reading while waiting for us to arrive, her glasses on a cord around her neck. As she rose to greet us when we walked in the door, her Siamese cat, Charlie, never friendly, would retreat stiffly out of sight. The open kitchen was along one side of the large, square living room, and there was a long wooden table that looked out onto the terrace and the pasture beyond. The walls of the house were thick and solid, and the overall impression was completely different from that of the airy, open to the elements glass and wood Joseph Eichler house my parents rented in Mountain View, in the Bay Area. M.F.'s papers were piled everywhere, on her desk, by her typewriter, in her bedroom. I can still remember the dense and meaty grilled chicken drumsticks with watercress and homemade pickles she served for lunch when I was about 10 years old. Or they may have been drumsticks from some other, smaller bird. I remember they were tiny and delicate, a little bit sweet. I loved them. Even more than the drumsticks, though, I remember my dawning sense of mortification as I heard myself say, "This is exactly the same thing we had the last time we were here." The adults all laughed awkwardly. Needless to say, I hadn't meant the remark as any kind of criticism, but that's what they all thought, I realized too late. That I was suggesting she had a limited cooking repertoire. M.F. assured me she had made the dish again, especially for me, since I'd liked it so much the last time we were there, which must have been months earlier. We visited 3 or 4 times a year. I quickly agreed that I had, and still did. Everyone watched me as I ate. I ate slowly at that age. This was another topic for discussion. "Luke, you are a very slow eater," M.F. said, not for the first time. She approved of this character trait. One should stop and savor the food while eating, take pleasure in the moment. She, too, was a slow eater. M.F. spoke to children as if they were slightly amusing adults. She took them seriously, though, I remember. Her voice was quiet and confiding. She looked me right in the eyes and listened when I spoke, and in her eyes I saw an impossible combination of intense interest and dispassionate, calculating judgment. There was no condescension at all, but she left no doubt that she was at all times taking note of what you said and how you said it, what you ate, and how quickly. That look in her eyes is my most lasting memory of my great-aunt.